Good morning, everybody. It's Vapixie from Subjugated Gaming, bringing you an episode of Horus Heresy Legions. Now, in this episode, I'm going to take you through the best warlords that I believe that you can play for the end of season for Horus Heresy Legions. Now, this video will be mostly for 3,500 trophies plus in that range, which I think is where a lot of the people who play this game consistently will be sitting. And I'll try and make another video for everybody between like the 2,500 to 3,500 range, but we'll see. So these are the warlords that I think could get you in that range and do you well between 3,500 plus. Some of the warlords maybe not above 4,000, but these are, I think, are the main warlords you want to be playing this late season. And we're going to start by analyzing them, their bad matchups, their good matchups, and just basically saying how they play, and I'll give you my opinion of how you should play, or I should play, really, in the late game, which warlords I would want to play. So we'll start here with Bulvi. Now, Bulvi is an incredibly strong deck. If you get something down early, like a Scout or a Skitarii here, you'll just destroy your opponent. They're so hard to deal with when you start buffing with Bulvi's ability that it is just incredibly hard to stand up. Not to mention they've got their legendaries here, like this guy who can just heal out the wazoo and all the ward that can just destroy you. Not to mention their late game get out of jail free card where they just play it and they'll destroy your board. It is an incredibly hard deck to deal with. I think it's probably one of the best at the moment. Like, I'm talking top 2 most likely, I think, in the high ladder. Now, the reason why I don't want to play this deck is because Bulvi here is quite frequent in top 50 and 3,500 plus, that you come up against a lot of mirrors, and in those mirrors, it's a 50-50 coin toss of whether you're going to win or lose, basically. Now, it's not quite that. You can go second and win, but 9 times out of 10, if you go first and you don't play poorly, you will win. Just because you can land something early with sneak attack, and then they've got no way of dealing with it. You can just constantly buff it. No matter what they play, it'll be bigger than theirs. Now, of course, there are counterplays. If they start with Scout, you can play Rotau, and you can make their Scout lose stealth, but then next turn, in order to get rid of their Scout, because you have to get rid of it as soon as possible, you'll be trading out with it and taking damage, and it might take you a turn or 2 to get rid of it. Now, because of that, they'll be able to play other things and start buffing them, which just sets you more and more behind. So you can come back, as I've done a couple of times. I've been very close to coming back, but it's such a hard uphill battle to do it that I don't want to play Bulvi because of the mirrors. Next up, I want to go to Lucretia here. Lucretia is a very similar deck to Bulvi. It's got the same sort of feel to it when you play it, but of course it's neutral, but you can play the neutral cards a lot earlier with her -1 reduction of cost, and you get a lot of things out early. Now, a couple of cool things you can do, which in experimenting with this deck, I was considering playing 2 Sabotages, because if you Sabotage your own Eta Kappa here, the stun goes away. Sabotage destroys stun. So you can have it be stunned, sabotage it, and then swing for the damage. Now, this is a 5-drop 8/7 in this deck, so it's incredibly strong. So the way I was thinking of building this deck is double Sabotage, double Eta Kappa, and also Slayer of Worlds. There's the 15 drop that you pay 1 less every time something dies. Like, it's 15 and it costs 1 less every time something dies, right? And it's got Maintenance 7. Now, if you Sabotage it, the Maintenance 7 goes away. So what you could do in this deck is do that. But the thing about this deck is that I think it loses to Bulvi more times than it wins. First of all, Bulvi will always go first. If he opens something with sneak attack, it almost doesn't matter how you play this game, you will lose. He can just buff it and you will lose. This deck is great against a lot of the other decks, like Canis and Horace and what else? We also got like Alfares. I think it's a very good deck against those because you can just spam out the troops really quickly and get so much field advantage. But against Bulvi, I think you lose. So that's why I also wouldn't play it, because Bulvi is everywhere. Next up, we are going to go to Canis, the big boy. Now, since the nerf, he's not quite as strong, but he's still incredibly powerful. The thing about him is that he's got the consistency to deal early game damage, but he loses also to Bulvi, I believe, because of the stealth and because of the ward. Like, his shoulders just become useless because of that. And so that's why I think Canis is not your pick either. He also, I think, loses to Lucretia a little bit, just the amount of troops that she can play out early that Canis is unable to deal with. Also, Lucretia will go first because Canis' initiative is not just low, it's a very low. He will always go second. So I don't want to play Canis either. He is a very good choice. All these decks are very good choice. They'll get you wins. You'll destroy the bots. Don't get me wrong there. But I'm talking in terms of your matchup against other warlords. you'll have auto wins with these decks. Like I said with Bullvi, if you go first, it's an auto win against the mirror almost, right? But I don't want it. I hate the flip where you get that second and you have that auto loss. It feels really, really bad to be unable to really fight the matchup. So I think Canis has ways out of that because of his fists. If you play well, you can very much destroy the problem cards in the early game, and then it's kind of like a game from there against those decks. So I would play Canis over either Lucretia or Bullvi, but I also don't like playing Canis because it's a Titan and it feels cheap. But that's just me. Next up, we're going to look at Sol. Now, Sol, unfortunately, I think loses to Bullvi as well. The reason why I'm including him in this list is because he's a card that everybody basically has access to. The good thing about Sol is that he is a very common warlord for everyone to have. He dominates early ladders. A lot of people have him. If you have the right legendaries, you can go incredibly far with Sol. He was my first deck that got me to Terra, and he got me beyond that as well before I started to change. The problem again with Sol is that if Bullvi is able to land some things early, you can just get overrun. Now, yes, Sol can use Tactical Brilliance to get out those big things, and that's an incredibly, incredibly powerful move. Like turn 2, dropping one of these guys and just saying, I have a 7/5 that's already done 4 damage to you. Please take 7 more damage and sacrifice a troop to get rid of it, because now I can play something else on an empty board. If you're able to go first with Sol, you're in such a good stead. But I don't think he is that reliable. It requires you to draw the Tactical Brilliance and stuff like that. It requires you to... Like, the best thing about Sol is getting the big things out that little bit early when they can't deal with it. You know, like dropping like an Eidolon here before they're able to play their 7-drop kill spell, you know? It's just an insane advantage, but it's not consistent, I don't think. And you can just run out of cards as well very quickly, and so you lose that card advantage, so in the late game, you're not as powerful. And I think there are better early game decks. For instance of the better early game decks, Earl in here. Earl is a consistency machine. Literally, your entire deck just says, let's just play for a little bit while I shoot you for 3 as constant as possible. Now, I play Earl a little different to what a lot of people do because Edict is a card in the game. It's a 5-drop that says both players lose all of their tactics, they return to deck, and then the person who plays it draws a card. So you can't play incredibly tactic heavy. Now, this is very tactic heavy, but it's not as tactic heavy as a lot of World Eaters decks are these days when they play like 25 tactics and just the fast troops play, basically. Now, this deck here, you have to play a little differently. You have to understand that Void Engagement here, it is as powerful late game as it is early game. It does the exact same thing late game as it does early game. So for instance, turn 2, you have 3 energy. You have the choice of shooting with Erlen and playing Void Engagement, or you have the choice of playing a Las Rifle here and just swinging with Erlen. For me, I always play the Las Rifle because you put that field pressure on. And Las Rifle, as the game goes on, becomes less and less powerful. It's a 3-drop 3/3. When you try and play that against a 5-drop 5/5, it's not as comparable. But in the late game, this will still do exactly what it does. There's no getting any more value or any less value out of this. It does the exact same thing. That's why I always throw my Goldstones in my opening hand most of the time. When versing certain matchups, you want it as like a kill spell, basically. But ideally, you want to draw your Goldstone Hunters at the end because they just swing and they die. You get no field advantage off it. You can't keep up with what your opponent is doing. So I think Erlen is a very good, solid deck, as you can beat both Lucretia and Bullvi with it just by being that fast. The problem is, Canis is everywhere, and it is almost an auto loss every time you fight him. The unfortunate thing is, a lot of your damage goes direct face, and the way to beat Canis is to destroy the shoulders and the arms first, really. So you have a very slight chance of being able to just rush face so quickly, but because of the shield that Canis can put out basically for free 2 out of every 3 turns, you just can't quite get that damage in before that 40 damage in before he can get 30 damage in on you. It is just such a rough matchup. I pushed early on ladder with Erlen just because the games are quick. You have 5-minute games, 4-minute games a lot of the time where you can just smash them out. So if you lose one, it doesn't really matter. You can just push back through. But as you get higher and higher in ladder, your wins start netting you +4, +5, +6, while every loss gets you -12, -13, sometimes -20, depending on who you lose to. So that 5 wins in a row is like, great, you lose one time to Canis, and that's all your points lost. So he's not consistent because Canis is in the mix. He also loses to Sol if Sol can get out that big thing with Tactical Brilliance. That's very annoying. Someone else Earl always loses to, well, I think a lot of the time will lose to, is Horus. Because Horus has a lot of direct face damage, and he also has a lot of awesome troops he can play. And if he's able to get anything solid on board, you're sacrificing your troops to deal with it. Now, Horus is great right now because they buffed him back to high initiative here. So high initiative here, it just changes everything. You're able to be super aggressive again, going first in a lot of matchups, especially against your Bulvi, your Lucretia, your Canis, right? You can just be incredibly quick. You can spam out your quick fires as well, because if you think of it, it's a 1-drop, deal 2 damage. But with Horus's draw, you can just recycle your cards and build up your hand incredibly quickly again. You know, if you're always going first, you basically just pay 2, draw a card. Now you have the same card advantage as them because second place draws an extra card. But you have that initiative up. So you're feeling really good with Horus. Since he's increased to high initiative back in the meta, you know, being able to Vengeful Spirit at the end saying your opponent has 8 less life is fantastic. The draw a card on this card is kind of like useless most of the time, but sometimes the draw will happen. But if you ever have to use this to kill a troop, you're feeling really bad. This is your finisher. So I think Horus here is a good option, but I think he can get overrun by the likes of Bulvi and Lucretia. So I don't know exactly how good he'll be. I haven't really messed around with him too much. I think he's solid. I think he'll get you there, but I don't think he is as consistent as a lot of these other decks are. So next up, we're going to look at Flak. Now, Flak is a bit of a meme deck because it's all about having your escape vent, right? Drawing into the best 4-drop in the game, right? Because basically, this is at least a 4-drop 5/5, right? Because it takes 1 damage at the start of your turn, gets 5 attack, and has 5 health. That is a 4-drop 5/5 that can get better, basically. It's insanely good. It's one of the best 4-drops in the game. So the idea behind the Flak meme deck is you get your veteran out, you escape vented, right? And then on your turn, you use Flak's ability to pay 1, give it +2 on the front, and deal 1 damage. So this thing has now gone from taking 1 damage from Relentless, going to 5, taking 1 damage from Flak's ability, right? Going to 7, then getting the +2, so it goes to 9, right? So it's a 9 attack, right? But it's only lost 2 life so far, so it's a 9/4. The next thing you do is you play Harsh Discipline here. Now it does 1 more damage and gives it Bloodthirst. So now it's gone from 9 to 13 attack, so now it's a 13/3. And you go, well, I've got Bloodthirsty as well, so you attack the opponent for 11 damage. You take the damage, so you've done 11, then his attack goes up again to 13, from 11 to 13. So you attack for 11, then attack for 13. That is a 24 damage. That is over the half a life of anyone. Before that, every single turn you are swinging face as much as you can, and the rest of your turn is just playing draw cards to draw the combo. You've got your Mortar Strikes and your Contrador to do the additional damage as well. It is just an incredibly just go to kill you deck. Face damage as much as possible. Got your Goldstones for that little bit of reach, your Precision Bombardment also for that little bit of reach. It's all about getting that combo off. Now, it's not very consistent because, of course, you need to get both those cards and the Harsh Discipline, so it's a 3-card combo for all that damage. But with the amount of draw, you can get it off fairly consistency. The problem is that with Angron, a lot around the 2,500 to 3,500 and a little bit above there as well, the combo doesn't work because when you go to attack, you've got 3 health, so you can't ever get that double attack in. It also doesn't really work against Canis because he will run a lot of anti-stealth and can just shoot it, you know, with his arms and stuff like that, so then it's got no health left, and it just dies, and there goes your field, right? And there goes your combo, and so you can't deal with it, especially with the shield as well. It is just not that powerful, so I'm not too sure about how good he can go. He'll get you up there with that meme deck. You will win a lot of matches, but once you're up there, it kind of drops you. Now I'm going to talk about the two decks which I think are the most consistent and best for pushing high ladder for me at the moment, and that is Alfaris and Conrad Curse. We'll talk about Alfaris first. I don't really play him that much because I don't think I'm a very good Alfaris player. I've never really know when to do things that often. I always seem to fall behind. But this is essentially the deck. You just want to get that chip damage in a lot of the time. And that's fantastic. You've got your, I'm going to make them draw all the cards in the world so I can harrowing them. You've got your stun, which goes everywhere, so you're really good against Canis because of the stun. You can just say your arms aren't doing so much. You've got your board stun and stuff like that. He's got all of his heal as well, so he can survive the onslaught from things like Bulvi and Lucretia. and you've got enough stun so that if Soul drops something early, something big early, you can just stun it out forever. I think against Earl as well, with the amount of heal and stun you have, is just enough to get past it. It is an incredibly, incredibly solid deck, Alpharius. He is a lot of times only loses because the person playing him just can't quite get there because they play something in the wrong order or something like that. I always find that if somebody turn 4 power spears you and then they're running orbital base to just shuffle their hand in and deal all that damage, it is so hard to deal with. Just being able to stun you every single turn, one of many to draw everything, they can barge to get out of jail. I play one of these for the stun. I think a lot of people do. You've got the harrowing for the border wipe. They've got the score for the stun. It is so strong. Like being able to go turn 9 energies to turn 8, play this, deal 3 damage and stun their board, and then they can't deal with it. Usually they might stun it, or not even. They'll just play a frontliner. Then the following turn you harrowing, clear their board, and smack with score. That's more or less 15 damage at least just from that, and that is insane. Alpharius can be incredibly consistent. They've got heaps of draw. The one problem with Alpharius is you want your opponent's hand full. And if you're saying you have a full hand, that means they have every option under the sun to kill you. And that's incredibly dangerous sometimes. Saying we both draw cards is great, but if they're drawing their options and their options can kill you, you're feeling pretty unwell there. But in saying that, I still think he is one of the best decks to play because he can deal with every single deck here, I believe. The one that I like to play is Conrad Curse. It's been a long time since Conrad has been bad in the meta. The problem with Conrad is you look at this deck, it looks like just a bunch of mishmash, doesn't it? It's so many one-ofs. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-ofs. Everything else is a one-of. So we have, what's that? 5 2-ofs, that's 5. So that's 10, so 25 cards. We have 25 different cards in this 30 card deck. And that seems really inconsistent, but there are also so many legendaries. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 legendaries in this deck, and that's hard for a lot of people to do, not to mention Conrad Curse is legendary himself. So I always think Conrad for me is the best option because you can deal with the early game from Bullvi because of the what's it called, the Rule of Fear, being able to destroy your troops with 2 attack or less. So those early troops that they play in stealth can go. You've got your Mercy and Forgiveness as well. That does a similar job because they'll usually like buff their recon, their scout, start attacking as a 2/4, and then you can just play this and take the face damage. It doesn't feel great, but it gets you out of jail. Not to mention Recon Claw is an incredible card. The comeback that you can that comes from this card, just being able to play things like your Reaper, to say they've got 2 troops, one can't attack, this will kill the smaller one. Your move, it is so powerful. For me, this is my favorite deck to push with. Now, yes, sometimes you can just lose because of things you haven't drawn or because your opponent opens super strong, but there is, for me, no auto losses or auto wins for Conrad Curse. There's no game where I go, I win this just because I'm him, and there's also no game where I go, I lose just because I'm Conrad. Now, one of the harder matchups, I think, is Alpharius and Earl, but they're not that prevalent. The most prevalent at the moment, I believe, are Canis and Bullvi in the top, just because of Bullvi's stupidity at the beginning, where he can just get out of hand really quickly, and Canis, because of all the fists, he's consistent. So for me, the best deck to play in the late game is definitely Conrad Curse here. And that's just my opinion. So if I had to rank them, I'd definitely say, for me, top 1, Conrad Curse. The next best, I think, is Bullvi. Right? He sucks in the mirror, but he can beat everything else pretty consistently, I think. As long as you play enough 2-drops and you don't stall out and you can pick your trades carefully, he can be incredibly strong. With all the ward, he's great. So definitely number 2 will be Bullvi. After that, I think Canis. So number 1, Conrad Curse, 2, Bullvi, 3, Canis. Next up, I think would have to be Earl, because his only bad matchup is Canis. Everything else he can be fast enough to deal with, and you also have the added benefit of most matches being very quick. That's the one downside to Conrad, is a lot of your matches will go to 8, 9, 10 minutes long, and if you're trying to grind out a bunch, then it can really push you down, unfortunately. So Earl would have to be next. He'd have to be number 4. And then after that, I think Alpharius is number 5. I think that's the matchup. So it's Conrad is 1, Bulvar is 2, Canis is 3, Earl is 4, Alpharis is 5. They're my top 5 warlords to finish off this season with. Now, this list might change a little bit with the 20 new neutral cards coming out soon. We'll see how that goes, but I'll do another list for them most likely. This is pre-release of all of the neutral cards, but it is including the current expansions that have just come out. But that's still left up in the air because nobody's had that much time to test with all of the cards. I'm still missing a bunch. I'll do a crate opening soon to get everything I'm missing. I've got heaps of coins, almost 30,000, so I should be able to get most of the things I'm missing. So that'll be it for this video. I just wanted to go through and tell you my thoughts and opinions on a lot of the warlords in the top end at the moment and what I think is the best, mainly for me. Now, this might differ for you, whether you don't have certain legendaries or you're not very good at playing a certain deck. But for me, I think Conrad Coast is the most consistent warlord to play because he has no bad matchups. He's got no good matchups, but if you're a good player, you're able to get around everything, I think. Alrighty, well, I'll leave that one here. Make sure you subscribe down below for more. And follow me on Twitter because I'll always upload there every time I upload a new video so you can keep up to date. I'll post these on the Horus Heresy Discord. Make sure you join that as well. It's an incredibly helpful Discord. And that's all. Until next time.